Gelato machines on a juicing channel? What's up with that? Hi, it's Dan with EUJUICERS.COM, and in this video I'll answer that question. I'll also talk about the different types of ice cream machines out there on the market. I'll talk specifically about these two here, share the similarities and the differences, and then I'll talk about the core recipes that are useful for any type of ice cream machine. And then we'll see them in action. So let's get started. So a few months back, we were at a consumer goods trade show called Ambiente. It's the biggest one in Europe. And we had a booth there full of juicers. And we noticed people coming by the booth holding little cups of gelato. Well, after about 100 of these customers came by, we decided to follow the trail back to the source. And that was a booth from a company called Nemox, Nemox. This is an Italian producer of professional gelato machines, the kind of things you'd see in an Italian gelateria or an ice cream bar. But they also had a couple of home models. So we talked to the guys there and we thought it might be a cool idea to test out a couple of these machines. I've been testing them out myself the last few weeks, and I actually found a way to integrate a juicer into that. So I thought, why not? Let's make a video, show it to you guys. So first of all, let's talk about the different kinds of ice cream machines that are available on the market now. So on the market these days, there's really three types of ice cream machines: low price, mid price, high price, each using kind of different technologies. The basic ice cream machines are what I used when I was a kid, and that's the bucket type of ice cream. Every summer, my parents would pull that out. My brothers and I would help with it. And these are basically for us, it was a wooden bucket. These days, it's more plastic buckets. Inside the middle of that bucket is a metal cylinder. That's where the ice cream recipe goes. So you just put in that cylinder, fill it up, put on the top. A motor sits on top of that, and then you put ice and rock salt around it in the bucket. Layers of ice, followed by a layer of rock salt, another layer of ice, layer of rock salt. And what that does, that salt will melt the ice into a really cold brine. That brine super cools the ice cream chamber in there. And depending on the outside temperature, because you're typically doing this outside, because the brine is draining out and you don't want that salty water going into your metal pipes, it takes typically around an hour or so to make the ice cream. Now, the big advantage of these machines is they're really inexpensive. They're the basic type of ice cream machines. Disadvantage, it's a lot of work, it takes a long time. You've got to have a lot of ice. You have to sit there refilling it constantly with ice and salt. But they do a good job. As kids, we were really happy with it. Now, the mid-level ice cream machines are what I would call the freezer machines, or freezer-based machines, and that's because they use your home freezer. They're just a simple kind of machine. It's a box with that metal cylinder that fits inside and a motor that spins the paddle inside. But that metal cylinder where you put the ice cream is actually a dual-walled cylinder, and in between those two walls of metal are a refrigerant or an antifreeze. And what you do with these models, you put that container in the freezer before you make your ice cream. And it's got to be in there a long time, 8 to 24 hours, depending on the manufacturer. When it's sufficiently cooled, put it in the machine, fill it with your recipe, start it up. And these take around 30 to 45 minutes, again, depending on the recipe, depending on how warm the room is where you're making it. Big advantage is, again, mid-priced, reasonably priced machines. They do a good job. They're simple to use, just one button after you've frozen it. Disadvantage, the quantities of ice cream you can make will be a little lower because as you're using that, it's not being actively kept cooled, so it's actually warming up. So you've got to make the ice cream pretty quick. You might be able to get a second batch done, but if you're washing it out in between, especially with warm water, you're probably limited to one batch. And then also you have to have space in your freezer and patience to wait 8 to 24 hours, or just keep that container in the freezer all summer. Now, the third type of ice cream machine, the most expensive ones, are the compressor-based machines. That's what both of these guys are. And it's something like a refrigerator or a freezer. There's a compressor inside with a refrigerant, and that's going around a bowl, keeping it cold. And these are kind of the all-in-one, plug-and-play kind of machines. There's no need to wait for a container to freeze. You don't have to add ice. You just start the machine up. And depending on the machine, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, you'll typically have ice cream. Most of the recipes I made took about 20 minutes in these machines. So that's the different kind of machines on the market. Let's talk specifically about these two guys. So what I have here are two of Nemox's best-selling models. This is the mainstream model here, the Gelatissimo Exclusive. And then the kind of upscale semi-pro model, it's the Pro 1700 up. And both of these models are actually considered useful for semi or light commercial use. Excuse me, I talked to the guys at Nemox, and they said both of these machines aren't something you would put in like a gelato bar or an ice cream shop, but something where you'd want smaller quantities that you could make throughout the day. Talking like a coffee shop or a cafe, a bakery, something like that. Now they have some similarities. They have some differences as well. The first similarity is you'll notice both of them say iGreen on them. That refers to the type of refrigerant used and really the environmental impact of that. A lot of these type of machines or any sort of compressor-based cooling systems use hydrofluorocarbons, also known as greenhouse gases. Both of these machines actually use a new type of refrigerant called R920 that has much lower emissions, practically zero. They tested it, and the emissions level compared to the old style was 0.05%, or 1/2000th of what the old machines would do. It's kind of like a few years back, cars had to stop using Freon in their air conditioning systems because of the environmental impact. Same thing here. They're putting in a more expensive refrigerant that also has a second benefit, and that is it cools at a lower temperature. That means the ice cream is made a lot faster, anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, and also that rapid freezing doesn't allow larger ice crystals to form. That means the end result will be just a lot smoother and finer consistency. Both machines also have two mixing bowls. They're both stainless steel, SU304, food grade stainless steel. Most ice cream machines just have one bowl, often fixed in place. The advantage of two, well, you can make twice as much. You can make one batch in here, take it out, immediately start a second batch. And also having a removable bowl means it's a lot easier to clean. These kind of machines aren't the kind of thing you'll just lug over to a sink. They're heavy. The mainstream model here is 11 kilograms and the upscale model here is 13 kilograms. So these are beefy machines. Now, one thing to note is the refrigerant is around the fixed bowl. So how do you get the inner bowl cool? Well, it fits really tightly, but you need to put something in there that's going to conduct the cold from the outer bowl to the inner bowl. And that's why the machines come with this little cup. You want to put in alcohol, 40% or so. Put in 2 of these little measuring containers into the fixed bowl. And then when you slide in the removable bowl, it displaces that alcohol, it coats the sides, and that provides really effective cooling. I only use the inner bowl in all my recipes, and most of them were done within 20 minutes. Now, in terms of differences, there are a couple. First is the construction. The mainstream home model, it's about half the price of the Pro model. The body is made from heavy-duty ABS plastic, whereas this model here is made from aluminum. It's also coated with several layers of scratch-resistant paint, just designed to be a little more durable and to look good, especially if you've got it out in a commercial setting, in a cafe or a bar or something. The other difference is the functionality. The Gelatissimo Exclusive is strictly a manual machine, whereas the Pro 1700 Up also has a fully automatic and storage mode. Let me explain that. Let's take a look at the controls here on the Gelatissimo Exclusive. Just 3 buttons is all. On, off, just to turn the machine on. Over here is a freezing button and then a motor button. When you're making ice cream in this machine, what you want to do is hit the freezing button while you're mixing your ice cream together. In about 5 minutes, it will have that metal container super cold, ready to go. That'll make the ice cream even faster. You pour in your ingredients, put in the paddle, put on the top, start the motor, and it just starts processing. You know, it scrapes the frozen ice cream off the sides, mixes it in, forms a new layer of frozen, and in 15-20 minutes, you'll notice it gets really thick, and manually you can shut it off yourself when it looks like it's the consistency you want, or if it gets really too thick, the machine will automatically shut off as well. And after that, you immediately want to serve it before it melts or put it in the freezer. The Pro 1700 here has that same functionality, a manual mode, but it also has a fully automatic mode. What that means is there's just one button. You can hit the pre-chill button like with this. That's what I would recommend just to get that container cool. But you put in your recipe, press the automatic start, and it's going to start mixing your ingredients just like before. After about 15-20 minutes, you'll notice it's thickened up, just about ready to serve. And when it's ready, the difference is you don't need to take it out of the machine. It will kick into a storage mode where it will keep the ice cream chilled, and you can serve it directly from here all day. So if you're in a commercial environment, you have ice cream ready to go without having to go to the freezer, take it out of the container, scoop it out. And it also has a density sensor in the machine that periodically checks the ice cream to make sure it's not melting or getting too soft. If it does, it kicks on the motor, starts mixing it again, starts freezing it at a fast temperature, and when it detects it's at the right consistency, shuts off, goes into cooling mode again. So it's what they call automatic or storage mode. So that's the similarities and differences. Now let's talk about basic recipes for any kind of ice cream machine. First of all, let's talk about the difference between gelato and ice cream. Or is there even a difference? Because gelato is simply the Italian word for ice cream. Well, when you look at recipes these days, there is a difference. What's considered ice cream is what we used to call French vanilla ice cream. The recipes are almost the same, except ice cream made in home machines typically use eggs now. So let's talk about the basic ingredients for any recipe. First of all, gelato or ice cream. It's usually an equal mix of heavy cream and milk, preferably full-fat milk. Then there's a sweetener involved, usually sugar, but you could put in things like maple syrup, honey, artificial sweeteners, things like that. And then the flavorings, which is often vanilla, can be fruit, chocolate, things like that. A few things to bring up here. First of all, if you're using eggs, if you're making American type ice cream or what was called French vanilla, back in the day when we were making ice cream as kids, I found the old recipe actually in my mom's old recipe book. And it was what I just said. It was cream, milk, sugar, vanilla, and eggs, 3 eggs thrown in raw. Most people today don't recommend using raw eggs because of concerns about salmonella. And they also recommend only using egg yolks. So what you want to do is heat up the milk and sugar, not the cream, until it reaches about 160 degrees Fahrenheit or 70 Celsius. You'll see it just start little bubbles forming on the surface. Pour some of that into your egg yolk mixture. Let it mix there. Otherwise, the eggs will coagulate if you pour them directly into the heated milk. Pour that back in, mix it up, let it cool down in the fridge. Takes a little longer. It's basically a custard-based ice cream. I tried them both actually in the testing. I even tried it with the raw egg yolks, and I thought that tasted a lot better, but it depends if you just want to take that risk. But otherwise, one thing to bring up is the issue of vanilla. Most recipes use vanilla. There's a few ways you can go about that. You can use vanilla sugar, which I wouldn't recommend because there's a lot of artificial flavorings in there. Same thing with artificial vanilla flavor that comes in a little bottle. That's just garbage. I don't think there's any vanilla in there at all. Really, the two ways to go about are either using vanilla beans, vanilla pods where you slice the vanilla bean down the length, peel it open, and scoop out the little seeds in there. I tried that in a recipe, gave it a really intense vanilla taste. Or what I like to do is use vanilla extract. We make homemade vanilla extract at home. We always have 2 bottles sitting around. Super easy to do. You just get a bottle of preferably bourbon or vodka, shove as many vanilla beans into there as you can, and then just let it sit out of direct sunlight. It takes about 3 or 4 months to really bring out the full flavor, but that's the way to go. And also one big advantage of that is the alcohol in there. You'll put a few tablespoons into the mix. Will actually lower the freezing content of the ice cream, and it acts as a bit of an emulsifier, makes it smoother. And that's also the main difference between gelato and ice cream. The ice cream, which has eggs in it, those eggs act as an emulsifier, and that means it's going to make the ice cream fluffier. It's going to be expanded more, and it'll be easier to scoop. If you put it in the freezer afterwards, you get a scoop, it'll scoop right out, whereas the gelato is a little tighter, more icy, more intense. You need to let it thaw a bit if you're going to put it in the freezer, and then it will be scoopable after that. But it's just a little more intense overall. Now, what I'm going to be making here are 3 recipes. Well, the first one really isn't a recipe. The first one is just ice cream mix. You see all around us these kiosks selling ice cream, most of them selling the same brand, and it's just a prepackaged mix. It's the easiest way to get what we'd call soft serve ice cream. It has the milk solids in there. You add water, you stir it up, put it in the machine. And I'm just going to do it so you can see the texture of it. There's a lot of additives, a lot of different preservatives in there. It tastes good. I used to have this every now and then in the summer. Stopped eating that stuff about 10 years ago because I never felt good afterwards. I think it's just an allergy thing with something in there because my family has no problems. They love it, and most of my friends do as well. Then I'm going to make a peach gelato. Now that's going to be, you'll see the specific quantities when we're actually doing it here, but it's going to be heavy cream, milk, sugar, vanilla, and peaches, and that's it. Most people recommend cooking peaches over heat to soften them up and to bring out the juices. You could just slice them up into little bits, put them into the gelato, but what you're going to have is a vanilla flavored gelato with little frozen peach bits. There won't be a peach flavor in the rest of it. But what I'm going to do, you'll see it in the video, is use a juicer. I have a horizontal juicer at home, Sana 707, and I don't like cooking fruit. I don't like hot fruit. So I sliced up the peaches and I ran it through the homogenizing screen. Most horizontal juicers have that. And it gave a really good result because it squeezed out juice. It doesn't extract it, it just squeezes it all together, puts it into a container, and you end up with some juice and a bunch of little peach bits, and it's not cooked, which is ideal. And it gave a really good result, so you'll see that. And finally, I'm going to make a vegan sugar-free ice cream. Well, there's sugar coming from maple syrup. It's going to be made from coconut cream and maple syrup and cocoa powder and vanilla, and that's it, just the 4 ingredients there. Now when you're making something like that, you can find coconut milk or coconut cream. I tried them both. Coconut cream worked a lot better because it's already mixed up well. It's got a higher fat content, which is going to freeze better, which is going to store better and be a little fluffier. And coconut milk, if you ever open a can of that, you'll see it's like 2/3 liquid and then 1/3 just solid coconut oil on top. And that's really hard to break up and get into little pieces. I ended up with little chunks of coconut oil in the ice cream. So again, you'll see all that, and let's get started.